Today's video is going to be about basically everything except the program. So everything that's going on this week leading into the event on Saturday. So the event on Saturday is to attempt to run a 5-minute mile and do a 500-pound back squat on the same day. There's loads of other stuff that goes into like a week pre-comp, even though this isn't a competition, but like pre-event week. And even though this is a slightly different event, a lot of you won't be doing this event, but there are certain things that you might take into account that are probably notable to talk about. First thing to talk about today is a change, and that's a change in footwear. As most of you who've been following along will have known, this was supposed to be run on a track with spikes. That was the kind of ideal scenario. That's what I had planned on doing all along. In Ireland right now, we're still in lockdown. We had hoped that the lockdown would be ending for this weekend or for next week, so we could kind of plan the training cycle to end, have a track open up, go and do the event. That's not going to happen now. It doesn't look like it's going to happen for another month or 6 weeks. So the run is going to be on the road. And there's a few things that have happened leading into this. So obviously the run being on a road doesn't lead itself perfectly to a kind of minimalist shoe. The reason I was using this is to get my feet and ankles and knees, everything just generally ready for running in spikes. All of my training has been done in this actual pair of shoes. This week though, I've changed to these. So these are Nike Zoom Flies. I think they're the ones with the carbon fibre plate in them. The other reason besides running on a road, and hopefully these will alleviate this issue, is I have some issues with my leg. And these are really aggravating that, to the point whereby I usually can't walk for a day or two after I run. I have been wearing these for the last few days. I absolutely hate how they feel. To be honest, like a kind of rubbery sole or a spongy sole is something I've always moved away from. I haven't liked them. I used to always wear Asics until I was like 17 or 18, and I stopped wearing them because I didn't like that feeling of movement. There's a lot of feeling of movement in these, but hopefully it will just allow me to get through the mile without kind of hugely aggravating the way my leg is at the moment. Right, what else am I thinking about this week? So there's a few things, obviously. One of the main things that will come into mind is like nutrition. To be honest, my nutrition hasn't changed at all. I've kept everything very consistent over the course of the week. One thing that it has changed is like my training volume is so much lower, so I'm just eating less food. It's not like a conscious effort thing. I'm just not training that much, so I'm not really hungry. One thing I have been concentrating on for the kind of nutrition side is like more hydration, so just getting better, more dialed in with my water intake. When I'm not training, I am very rarely thirsty. I could go from one end of the day to the other without drinking anything. So obviously I just have to really drive that home and make sure that's dialed in. We're at Thursday today and it's been pretty good for the rest of the week. So hopefully for the next 2 days, I can keep it fairly consistent. Right, the next thing moving on from like hydration is the thing I'm not drinking. So caffeine is an unbelievable stimulant for me. I definitely rely on it too much. I would usually have kind of like 2 big French presses of coffee a day and then have some like Monster or Coke Zero basically every day. I stopped drinking coffee on Monday. Stopping drinking coffee on Monday was something I knew would cause some issues. I didn't know how bad the issues were going to be. On Tuesday evening, I had to pull in when I was driving because my headaches are so bad. It got to the point, like just took some painkillers, got to the point on Wednesday where I had like a small amount of Coke Zero just to give me some caffeine. No headaches since then. And hopefully that will kind of drive my responsiveness to caffeine on Saturday for the event itself. On Saturday, the amount of caffeine will probably be quite high. You'll see it on the day anyway. And I'm just hoping that I won't need quite so much. So if I can get away with a gram of caffeine over the course of the day, I think I'll have done fairly well. Other things that have affected me this week that you might not necessarily think of is sleep. So there's a fair amount of like anxiety built up over this event. I've been training for a while. I had a kind of false start last year with it. And obviously there's a bit of pressure. So we're documenting everything. We'll be documenting everything on the day. Hopefully we'll get everything covered. And just like sleep or lying in bed every night thinking about the event isn't ideal. I've kind of gotten on top of it. The other thing that is definitely negatively affecting my sleep at the moment is my leg, to the point where like on 2 nights last week I just didn't sleep because of my leg. So I've just been concentrating on sleep more. That's less screen time before I go to sleep, cutting off almost all food for like 3 or 4 hours before I go to sleep, even though yesterday I didn't. That definitely does improve the quality of my sleep hugely. I think, to be honest, being better hydrated improves the quality of my sleep as well. So other things that are going on this week to get ready for Saturday, one of the main things is the actual running route itself. Obviously in Ireland we don't have like big, long, straight, flat roads. There's a place, maybe a kilometre from my house, that's pretty flat. It's pretty straight. There's kind of 2 or 3 bends in it, and that's where I plan to do the run. I was just scouting it out, so I've driven it a few times, I've measured it a few times, I've ran on it. Now the job for tonight is to go and measure it with this. This, for those of you who did science in primary or secondary school, will know as a trundle wheel. There's just a counter on it, and that is how I'm going to count the distance. So 1609 meters. I've got some spray paint, I'll just mark the road. In terms of pacing, and this is very much in with the measurement tool, I'm going to mark the road every 200 meters. I have a friend who's going to cycle in front of me. I don't have a pace runner or anyone who's going to be running in front of me. It would be ideal if I did, but lockdown conditions and everything that's happening at the moment, that's just not a possibility. So my friend is going to cycle in front of me. He has a list of times that he has to hit for every 200. I'm going to run directly behind him. And then we're going to get Garth on a bike who's going to video the whole run from kind of a third person view. Right, additional concerns for this week are the usual things you have going into a competition, right? Not overreaching, making sure your training volume is sufficient, making sure your training intensity is sufficiently high. So obviously if I hadn't trained for 10 days and then want to do a maximal squat, I would be absolutely pooped. Or like, for me anyway, it just wouldn't be ideal. So I did my last squat session at the start of this week. I did 215 for an easy single. So you'll see in the video of 215, right? It looks like a grand single. The reason I'm saying it like it's an easy single for me, or why I was happy with how that squat looked, is there's like zero hype. So none of the stimulus I'm going to be using on the day, none of the kind of major hype up that I'll hopefully have on the day. Granted, after running a maximal mile a few hours beforehand, but I'm just happy with how that 215 moved. We are now kind of 36 to 48 hours pre-event, closer to 36 than we are 48. In terms of this kind of discrete time period, there's 2 major things I'm looking to do, right? I have lists upon lists of things done and ticked off, mostly in terms of equipment needed, things I need to do, levels of hydration, amounts of sleep I need, all these things that I've planned out. I'm very much a list maker, and that's a major part of me limiting stress over the next day and a half. Definitely on the day itself, I need to be conscious of limiting stress due to the fact that the 1 mile is going to be the first thing I do. The weather window is looking like we're going to have to do it at around 8 a.m. because it will be raining and then snowing for the rest of the day. I need to make sure I'm very, very, very dialed in for that event, because anything before that, I just don't want to have to deal with. So in terms of gear that's in the equipment bag, making sure shoes are ready, making sure everything down to the meals I'm eating that day are all going to be prepped. Meal prep has already started here, so food for tomorrow and food for Saturday is pretty much sorted. The other thing I don't want to be doing is interacting with people hugely. So although people wanted to, a few of my friends wanted to come and shout at me or cheer me on as I was doing the run or the squat, just try and limit that as much as possible. I would be lying to you with a straight face if I said I wasn't extremely worried about this event not going well. So all of those lists, all of that kind of organizational structure will hopefully lead to an overall lowering of competition anxiety. Right, the day itself and how the day itself is planned to run. I spoke about the run being quite early in the day. We're going to do the squat quite late in the day. The squat doesn't really matter. It will be indoors in the high performance shed, but I do want a fairly significant gap in between. So to do the run itself, I'm planning to do the run, then go straight into the sea, so I don't have a kind of ice bath or anything here, or just as easy to throw myself in the sea. The sea is a few hundred meters in that direction. So I'm going to hop in the sea for around 10 to 15 minutes, maybe come in and out a few times just to flush my legs, and then I will get back to the house here and I will try and just eat and basically vegetate for the rest of the day. Around 3 hours out from the squad, or 2.5 hours out from the squad, I'll probably get up and start moving around. Once I do start moving around, I'll start intaking some caffeine, maybe an hour out, and then start ramping up into that again. Right, so to finish the video, if you do want to kind of see how this one turns out, we'll be putting a video up. It'll probably be Sunday by the time we get it edited, unless Gerf does some editing magic on Saturday. It will more than likely be Sunday by the time it's up. If you want to watch our story, so I'd say the Seek a Strength story will have some stuff on Saturday as we go throughout the day. My story might have some stuff, and Gerf's story will probably have some stuff up in it. And besides that, let's hope it goes well.